If you think singing feels harder than it should, then you're probably right. And there is a really good chance that your body use is one of the reasons for this. I was thinking about this while I was making a video for the resource library on easy alignment and body awareness. So today I'm going to show you one posture and energy adjustment that will make your singing feel easier rather quickly. And it's probably not what you think. This is a simple shift I use for myself, and I use images for this shift with singers I work with all the time. And the difference it makes is, well, wild. Let's dig in and I will tell you about it. Hey there, if you're new here, my name is Dan Calloway. I teach musical theater, voice, and vocal pedagogy at Boston Conservatory at Berkeley. I've spent more than 25 years on equity stages and 15 years helping singers get to work on Broadway, national tours, regionally, and around the world, and I'm very glad you're here with me today. So I got to chaperone our kindergartners' trip to the zoo yesterday, and it was the first 90-plus degree day here in Massachusetts this year, so 33 degrees for the rest of the world who uses sensible centigrade. It was hard, and thank God most of the zoo is shaded. Otherwise, it would have been a no-go. It was definitely a day that, had it just been our family, we would have wrapped things up in a neat 45 minutes and gone in search of ice cream. But I did get one moment to notice my wife's favorite animals while I was making sure our little gaggle of sweaty 5- and 6-year-olds didn't run off toward the big cat cages or find the maze they were so intent on entering. The animals I'm talking about are the giraffes. They reminded me of a really quick, easily accessible, and effective body use strategy. In fact, I even attempted to encourage the kindergartners to use this strategy while we were at the zoo. It wasn't as effective with them since they were not as open to my suggestions in a very sweaty and tired state. But here's what I see a lot. You're trying to sing a phrase and suddenly your breath runs out, or your vibration feels stuck, or your whole body and energy feels tight. You feel pressurized. You've worked on breath awareness, you've worked on phonation, understanding support and how your breath and vibration interact. But if your body is not organizing itself well, if your skeleton is not relating to its interconnected parts effectively, a lot of tension mayhem can ensue. Your feet, your knees, your pelvis, your spine, your rib cage, your neck, your head, your overall balance, all of that sets the stage for your voice to work efficiently. But many singers careen into a collapsed situation because a well-meaning teacher, I'm one of them sometimes, somewhere told them just to relax, or they muscle into an overlifted posture in an effort to achieve what some people might call an inspiratory hold or a lean, which is an effective thing when executed in balance, but this often leads to an overemphasis on one part of breath management or posture, and in turn it creates a static stuckness in the other direction. So I always say, if you're singing, you're moving. If you're singing, you're moving. And actually, that's just true. If you're living, you're moving. Your cells are dividing, your blood is flowing, breath is moving in and out. The actual movement of life courses through your very being. And when we acknowledge this reality as singers, then we can also free our bodies to continually adjust, move, and interrelate. If you're just standing what we would call still and singing, your body is really a beehive of activity. So the body use fix for today, since it's Zoo Day, we're going to call it the tall animal. So if you have a better suggestion for what to call this after I tell you about what it is, leave your contribution in the comments. Maybe we can come up with some more evocative, fun names. So it's not an overly rigid military position. It's not slouchy. It is you awake and alive inside your skeleton like a tall animal, naturally aligning from heels to hips to head. And even when your body's in other positions, as it will be as an actor or any kind of singing artist, these ideas and these compass points of your body will always guide you. So take a look. Many times, well-meaning teachers, including myself, will cue a student to relax, and that can turn into a sense of collapse. So if I'm collapsed, then my thoracic cavity has very little space. My abdominal cavity also has very little room. So the expansion of breath has very little leeway when oxygen enters your body. Since I'm not able to get any sense of expansion, there's not going to be a whole lot of range of motion for me to move energized, vibrating air through my folds. This also leads to a very unvirtuous cycle of shallow breathing, anemic airflow, and overall energetic blockage. If I overcorrect and kind of ratchet my sternum to the heavens and try to achieve some kind of static hold of my rib cage in an inhale position, I run the risk of locking certain muscle groups that then also create impediments to free and easy inhale and exhale. I'm also sending my mind and soul a very rigid and held message, and rather than collaborating with my physiology, I'm trying to force it into a kind of submission. And I don't know about you, but being coerced to do anything never feels good. So we just think about our friend the giraffe, or the way a horse moves, or perhaps even the energy of the amazing marmot I saw swinging on his branches. There is an energy and a lightness and a movement that enters the body from the inside out. This is your tall animal. That makes me think of that wonderful Mary Oliver poem when she talks about, what is it, the soft animal of your body? I think it's, you only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves, I think. I think it's her poem, Wild Geese. Yeah, Wild Geese. You could use them as an icon, definitely, especially if you need to stand your ground. Wild geese. They don't care. They will walk slowly across that intersection and hiss at you the whole way. So I guess you got to respect a wild goose, especially a Canadian goose. So here's a very quick rundown of what your alive, tall animal feels like. Your weight is going to be gently over the middle of your feet, feeling the shifts in your foot tripod from your heel to the 2 points in the balls of your feet, and then just right over the arches. You just feel out your body and see where your weight, your center of gravity, feels most balanced over your feet. You want your knees to be soft, never locked. I always say your knees are like soft butter. If your knees lock, notice what happens. It tips the back of your pelvis up toward the bottom of your rib cage, and you can lose a lot of room in the lower back. Therefore, that is room where the viscera could expand when the diaphragm descends for an inhale. So just take a moment to feel, when your legs lock, the decrease of space between the top of your back pelvis and the bottom of your back ribs. And then when you soften your knees like melted butter, then it brings your pelvis into a wonderful alignment with the bottom of your rib cage. So it's like the pelvis mirrors the diaphragm dome. This decreased space in the lower back that you discover in the leg lock is also what happens when we overlift the rib cage. So that's one possible domino, locked knees, or the other one. So if I'm overlifting here, I'm going to crunch the back. So can you imagine how terrible it would be if you have both going on at the same time? That happens as well. So take a look at those. Your knees, are they nice and soft? Melted butter, or soft butter, I say. And then, is your rib cage talking with your pelvis? So after your knees, you want to notice how your hip bones are aligned over your ankles. Depending on your particular center of gravity, you feel different weight distributions around your feet. So tune into that. Now notice how your pelvic bowl is a mirror image, like I said, of the downward bowl of your diaphragm. They interact and talk to each other. So a lot of times, just looking at this reality helps the pelvis and the rib cage to come into agreement, so the energy in your pelvis begins to align with the energy in your solar plexus, begins to align with the energy of your heart. And now a neutral feeling for the rib cage. You want the rib cage to feel slightly floating. Your sternum is floating and open, an open-hearted feeling. And so depending on the style of your singing, your rib cage will behave in many different ways. But this is, as a neutral place, it helps you to access a more expansive rib cage for perhaps Western classical singing, maybe a more pedestrian, relaxed neighborhood if you're doing more speech-like musical theater or folk. And then sometimes if we're really yelling out some pain-laden shouts and screams, depending on the style, our rib cage is going to experience a little bit more closure when we're exhaling. So I go over those things in a video on the principles of breathing that I'll link at the end of the video. And obviously, I'll be building all kinds of breath awareness tools for you in the library. But notice what happens to your body energy when the rib cage collapses. And notice what happens if you're overdoing the expansion and trying to hold that in a static way. Just notice the energetic signals that your physiology is sending to your mind and your soul. There's a whole lot of outside in that happens in the way we arrange our bodies. We were getting near the end of our zoo day and the kids were kind of doing the little slog. And I can't blame them. It was really hot. But it's very funny because once they got from the zoo to the playground, their bodies were just fine. So it's really interesting, just our sense of environment and the story we tell ourselves about where we are affects what's going on in our thought life, what's going on in our body life, and then what's going on in our over psychological and energetic life. So it's really interesting as a singer to think about how those things interplay. What I'm thinking, how my body is responding, or what I'm doing with my body, how my thinking is responding to that. So it's a really interesting thing to look at. So now let's follow the line of your spine, up your lumbar spine, through the thoracic spine, and then into the cervical spine. That's your neck. And then know that your spine inserts up into the skull right here between your ears. Your skull sits atop there at the occipital joint and then floats on the top of the spine. So you want to notice your ears are floating right over your shoulders. And that's where we come into this tall animal idea. Obviously, if I'm a giraffe, my head is way out in front of my body, but I'm not a giraffe, but I can employ some giraffe energy. I can employ some horse energy. I can employ some Labrador Retriever energy. I can employ some capuchin monkey energy. Any kind of animal that we embody, we can allow that natural being energy to fill us up from the inside out. Now notice what this does. Feet, knees, hips, pelvis, ribs, neck, and head are all collaborating in energetic alignment. And remember, this is moving. This can all move. It's not a rigid hold. In fact, it can't be if you're going to be singing. But what it does, it lines up your energetic centers into a collaborative family. So notice how you often want to walk around the world. Where does your body usually default? Become a student of this. I often notice that many people will lead with their head. Their head will come forward wherever they go. And besides being a culture that is often on screens and phones, there is an energetic reason for this. I think that a lot of times in life when our heart gets hurt, our brain starts to try to vet the situation before it allows the rest of the body to enter. So a lot of times people are trying to figure out a scenario with their head before they let the heart and the pelvis commit to the situation. So as an artist, when I line up my head, my heart, my pelvis, the entire energy framework of my body, there's a real energetic shift, and all of these different energy centers begin to collaborate and talk to each other. And you can really feel the difference. And even when I'm playing a character or singing a style whose centers might be out of line in any way, I, as the artist, can stay consciously connected with interrelated parts of my body in order to tell the story. So like if I'm telling a story as a character who might have a slight slouch, I can still really tune into where's my pelvis, where's my diaphragm, how can I create some space in the abdomen so that I can breathe well? How can my ribs still have a feeling of float and communication while they're still kind of collapsed? Or if the character's right here, how can I let this, say if the character's really proud and I walk around like this all the time, but how can I do this with maximal efficiency, minimal effort, most economy of movement? So these are the questions. Knowing how my body aligns, I can align my body in different identities, and I'm able to still collaborate the systems of singing. Now, with this awareness of alignment, your tall animal, your choice, keep experimenting with different animal images and let us know in the comments which ones seem to help you the most. We can collect a library of helpful pretend animals to help us free our bodies. Just let the breath fall in through the nose and come out through the nose. And maybe just open the jaw a little bit and allow an inhale in and then come back out and just notice, what does that do to your inhale, this animal body idea, this tall animal idea? Notice how the breath drops right into your body without you doing anything special. And that is what alignment will unlock. That is what the awareness and communication of your body and its systems will do when you bring consciousness to these places according to the parameters and ability of your own body. As you develop consciousness here, you'll be able to troubleshoot mid-song. You might notice that something is feeling a little tight, and then you'll notice, oh, my ribs and my pelvis are not in alignment. Or you notice maybe your head wants to jut forward to force communication. You'll be able to error correct mid-song and coach yourself like a helpful guide rather than berate yourself in like some state of self-conscious abuse. So it's a really terrific shift. I tell students all the time, I always think about technique when I sing. I find it to be really a collaborative friend that helps me out when I get in a pickle, and I often do get in a pickle. And when you get in a pickle, that's why we have technique. That reminds me, our first grader held up his fingers in front of me yesterday and said, "Break the pickle." And then you chop the fingers, and then he goes, "Tickle, tickle, tickle." I thought that was very funny. So I've worked with singers who use wheelchairs, singers who battle chronic pain, singers who deal with all manner of musculoskeletal variations, and understanding how their pelvis and ribs and head, knees, feet, no matter what the arrangement is, how they align and relate is tremendously useful. And then there's an energetic inclusion of the entire body, an energy framework that comes into it. Singing is very mysterious, and it's all about vibration. And I believe there's all of these unseen forces that we don't even notice when someone sings, but we can feel them when a person is communicating soul to soul. When your skeleton and structure enlivens you like this, phonation becomes easier because you are calibrating space in your torso so that the breath is much more manageable. You're not pummeling your glottis with crazy pressure. Resonance opens up because releasing collaborating energetic centers in the body also helps things like pharyngeal constrictors to open up, and it even brings more witness in proprioception to all the systems of singing. Just the intention to witness yourself in a gentle and loving way creates an amazing energetic shift that allows your breath to flow more freely and communication to flow in a joyful manner. And breath feels like it's working with you, something you're actively collaborating with, not something you're fighting to control. That's why I'm always wary of saying words like control, support, posture, because they connote more rigid management of things rather than a collaboration with your amazing body. This is part of what we train in the Studio Resource Library too. We don't just chase symptoms like breathiness or strain. We build from the soul, the energy, the body out, so singing emerges as a natural outflow of your energetic systems, collaborating with each other. This is really a foundational step in making singing what I call offensively easy. And that's my whole MO with the library. I want people who use it to start to understand all the systems of their voice. You understand yourself on an energetic, physiological level. You understand your particular instrument, how it operates with your breath, your phonation, your resonance, your articulation, and your artistry. And if you're not quite sure what I was talking about when I talk about space in the thoracic cavity with breath pressure, check out the video where I break down the mechanisms of breathing, the different ways that we allow air in and the different ways that we can move air out, depending on style and genre. So look for that in the end screen coming up. And check out the Studio Resource Library in the description. It's full of guided exercises, video lessons, and tools that will make your singing free and easier, and you'll get to know yourself better and how to troubleshoot on your own. For this summer, we are piloting a beta version. It's just $37 a month for full access, and that will include Q&A, 2 of those per month, live Q&A sessions with me. We've got one coming up on Tuesday, as well as access to Dan GPT, which is an AI I trained with all of the transcripts for my YouTube videos and the text for my blogs. Anything I've basically ever taught that's been recorded or written is in that knowledge base, so you can interact with it and ask it specific questions about your technique. So you can find that in the description. So join us in here and help us build this summer. I'm going to be interacting very directly with this small beginning group, and you can tell me exactly what you need and I can build it for you. I already made my first official technology mistake with the current group, so you get to watch me mess up and fix things in real time this summer. And if you employ the tall animal today, There's my giraffe, right? Drop a comment and let me know if it changed anything for you. And again, let me know what animal works best for you. Most of all, please remember, there is only one you, and somebody would love to hear the story only you can sing. Love much. Be a tall animal. Now go sing.